Things just took a sickening turn for the Dallas Cowboys as we have a major injury report that could shake up the Dallas Cowboys 53-man roster that will need to be finalized by tomorrow. We'll get you the latest Cowboys injury news right here, right now on Cowboys Digest. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning into today's show. Before we get going, I want to say a quick thank you and welcome to everybody who subscribed yesterday. We gained 280 subscribers on yesterday's video. That is the most we have ever gained on a single video. And want to say that if you are new, hit that subscribe button. Join those 280 who made the decision to join the Cowboys Digest community yesterday. I want to say a huge thank you, and we are going to keep growing here at Cowboys Digest and keep putting out daily Cowboys content, so make sure you're along for the ride. Let's get going into today's injury report. It is not a positive one, to say the least, as Phil Mafah, a guy who had talked about a lot yesterday on the 53-man roster projection of, I believe he should make the roster. Well, now he's going to make the roster, and he's going to be on the IR for a shoulder injury. However, he is expected to return in 2025. That is the bad news, is that he has that shoulder injury. Good news is he's going to be on the roster, and all signs point to him when he comes back to take a roster spot from whoever it might be. And that's exactly what we're going to have to talk about today and kind of go through a lot of different scenarios. But let's first talk about Phil Mafah and the injury and what we know. So obviously today, Monday, was the first time that it was I'm going to say official practice. There is no preseason game to practice for. Tomorrow is the 53-man roster cut down. So there is now practicing for the Eagles. This is how the Cowboys are practicing now for the regular season. And today, Phil Mafah was not practicing during the portion the media was seeing. So that was somewhat of a confusing thing at the time. And obviously we have the picture here. Just on the sidelines, he's got his gear on, but not on the field, not making contact, just really hanging out and, somewhat like Micah Parsons, just hanging out there, not really doing too much. Now, we obviously got a report later from Jimmy Fowler that said the Cowboys are going to place running back Phil Mafah on injured reserve per sources. The plan is for him to return sometime during the season. Obviously, the positive was he was very good in preseason, at least for what you would expect out of a 7th-round running back and for what the Cowboys are looking for. 15 carries, 59 yards, and 1 touchdown. I'll take that any day of the week, and a lot of it talked about the blocking the running backs were able to do. Mafah was a big portion of that. Really like the blocking we were seeing from him in a running back sense. And obviously kind of stinks that he will not be starting the year in a playable format, and obviously a couple of things to kind of talk about there, but unfortunately he will be on IR. We go to blogging with the boys. Jesse Haney said this, quote, "After a solid preseason and many fans hoping he made the Cowboys 2025 roster, running back Phil Mafah is going to start the year on injured reserve. The 7th-round rookie has an unspecified shoulder issue that will keep him off the 53 until at least week 5 when he'd first be eligible to return." Okay, so we know a couple things. He wasn't practicing today. It was an unidentified shoulder injury that we know of, and the expectation is for him to come back sometime this season. However, it will have to be at least week 5 before he is able to return. Now, if you don't know, Mafa went to Clemson, and funny enough, he had an injury there. Quote, "Mafa played through a labrum tear in his left shoulder during his senior year at Clemson, having surgery in late December. He missed the scouting combine and his pro day as he recovered, which is part of why he fell so far in the 2025 NFL draft. It is not yet known if the current issue is associated with that injury or if it's even the same shoulder," end quote. However, the expectation is, okay, you come out, you're drafted at a lower portion than probably what you should have been. I mean, if you look at his stats in Clemson, I expected Mafa to go at least a 5th round would be kind of my expectation, maybe 6th, but ends up going in the 7th round to the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm not mad at. Got better every year he was at Clemson. And obviously, the shoulder, the labrum tear, keeping him out of pro day and all that was a big reason why he was in the available aspect in round 7 for the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously, there's a lot of hope that he could do a good amount of things for the Cowboys. Unfortunately, now we're going to have to wait to exactly see when he will come back. We'll get hopefully some more info on the injury as the days pass. Tomorrow, obviously, is a big day with the 53-man roster coming out officially. We're going to have a video on that, obviously breaking that down. But it's a big time right now for the Dallas Cowboys because In the bad side of things, Phil Mafah not making the roster really does stink because I think he deserved to. On the good side of things for the Cowboys, they at least have another roster spot open to kind of figure out what exactly they would like to do, especially in the running back room. Now, offensively, they have had a lot of running backs kind of been, let's say, talked about when it comes to the 53-man roster. Javonte Williams and Jaden Blue were very obviously going to make the roster. That is two guys who you expected as absolute locks. After that is where it gets to a little bit of a question mark, because you're probably going to add Hunter Lipke, who is a technical fullback, but he's very valuable, so you're going to put him on the roster there. So that's 3 running backs. And if you're going to carry 4, you had the option of Phil Mafah, Miles Sanders, Deuce Vaughn, and Malik Davis. Now that option gets limited. There was a bunch of people saying Miles Sanders shouldn't make the roster, or maybe Deuce Vaughn shouldn't make the roster. Either way, I think if you're going to keep 4 running backs, or maybe even 5, you have the option to keep one of them at the least. So in this situation, what is the option? Because odds are whoever is kept of Sanders or Deuce Vaughn, they will be moved either to the practice squad or just straight cut when Phil Mafah does return. Because in my mind, at this point, because of the injury to Phil Mafah, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think there is a lack of known RB1 potential in Javonte Williams. I think Jaden Blue has a lot more potential. However, he's younger. In that aspect, I wouldn't be surprised if they had 4 running backs on their roster in Blue, Williams, Lipke, and Sanders or Vaughn. And then between Sanders or Deuce, whichever one doesn't make the roster does get onto the P squad. However, it's an interesting question now, because when Phil Mafah does come back, I don't think you're going to want to have to make multiple moves where you are, taking Deuce Vaughn off the practice squad to put Miles Sanders there, or vice versa. So in my opinion, this is kind of an interesting slot, but whoever gets placed on the practice squad versus whoever gets placed on the roster, you almost like to have the practice squad position, because you're probably a little bit more secure there. Because I do believe that, in my opinion, the option is clear to put Miles Sanders on the active roster, and then at that point, you can take him off if he hasn't done anything in 4 weeks, or whenever Phil Mafah is ready to go, put him back on the roster, and you can straight cut Miles Sanders, especially if you don't need him. At that point, you'll have a lot more answers to the running back question, what exactly is going on in your running back room. So I just showed you the running backs, and I have a question for you. Obviously, that has been a big point of contention throughout the entire 53-man roster cut-down discussions. So, in your opinion, who will make the 53-man roster in terms of running backs? Are they going to keep 4? Are they going to keep 5? Who are they? I want you to get down in the comment section. We are going to count Hunter Lipke as a running back, so add him into your equation as well. Type your guys out. You can type in last names, type in how many, whatever you'd like. Just let me know in the comment section, what running backs do you believe will make the 53-man roster? You kind of already heard my opinion, but I'll say it again. I think if you're looking at this from a whole purpose, you're getting Javonte Williams, you're getting Jaden Blue, you're getting Hunter Lipke, and then I think you're keeping Miles Sanders and Deuce Vaughn. It's going to the practice squad, and then whenever Phil Mafah does return, I think it's a straight cut of Miles Sanders, unless he proves us, he proves worth anything, which I have a high doubt, for the simple fact that Blue and Williams are going to take the majority of the running back duties. Maybe Miles Sanders gets there. Maybe he breaks a couple across some good runs, but I just don't see him being on this roster for a long period of time. However, due to this, I do think it's something that could allow him to, do that. So obviously we talk to, or have blogging with the boys and kind of see what they say about the matter. Quote, "It remains to be seen if Sanders, Vaughn, or Malik Davis claims that last spot, but with the added note that Mafa is expected to return later this season, whoever of them makes the roster now may only be a temporary. Mafa could be eligible to return after week 5, assuming he's one of the 2 players Dallas is using that provisional on." Now, in case you don't understand that, there is a provisional IR, which basically you are allowed 2 slots to place somebody on injured reserve to start the season, and then they can return on after 4 games. There is a bit of a question mark coming here, though, because obviously you do have Jonathan Mingo. And I know there's going to be a couple people asking, what about Trevon Revel Jr.? Well, technically, he is going to be on the non-football injury list because his injury goes dated back to his college days. So while, yes, it was a football injury, it was not with the Dallas Cowboys organization. So he is on the NFI list, not the IR. There's a little bit of a question mark, obviously, with that. So As of right now, I'd have to expect Jonathan Mingo and Phil Mafah to be the 2 IR slots that will be able to come back past week 4. But it's still definitely a question mark of whether or not they believe that much. We really don't know how long he's going to be out. The statement was he'll be ready for 2025. But when the roster cuts come down to it, if you're trying to put somebody else on the IR and you want him back before the end of the season, it's now becoming a numbers game at that point of, okay, who we have more faith will come back sooner, / who exactly is more worth it to have at the end of this season versus somebody who maybe we could be more expendable, not play him this season, have him ready for next year. One more from Jesse Haney of Blogging with the Boys, who says, quote, however it shakes out, Phil Mafah's time with the Cowboys isn't ending within the next 24 hours. As the team whittles down its roster ahead of Tuesday's deadline, this was another way to trim a spot without losing the player, end quote. And like I said, this is a very not good situation. However, in the end-all, be-all of all things, it's not a big deal because you're going to get an extra roster spot, at least for the first 4 weeks, maybe even longer. Again, we don't know. And so, does it stink that Phil Mafah will not be on that opening day 53-man? Yeah, we're not going to see him. But in the same light, he's not going to be done with the Cowboys by tomorrow. That's not going to be something that we're going to have to, face that he's going to get cut. Obviously, a very big day tomorrow for a lot of Cowboys news, 53-man roster breakdown. We are going to have so much to talk to. So if you are new and if you are still watching, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, it's 100% free, and I promise you, we're going to keep you covered on all the latest Dallas Cowboys coverage. We've got shorts. We're going to have some more lives. We've got a bunch of videos. So do not forget to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next time here on Cowboys Digest, everybody. Peace out.